The Sourdough Sidekick backers have submitted questions, and today Melanie from King Arthur Baking and me, Rick from FirstBuild, are going to answer those questions. Let's get to it.
Okay, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
So hi everybody, I'm Melanie Wanders and I'm a research and development specialist at King Arthur Baking Company in our research and development area. I've been with King Arthur for 13 years now. I started out in customer service answering baking questions for people who would call in, and then moved into our baking school where I taught pastry classes and wrote curriculum, and then eventually moved into research and development where I am now. I spent the last 2 years working on our big book of bread that has a lot of sourdough in it. And so I have been living and breathing sourdough for almost the last 3 years now. And I will currently have, probably at the end of this week, about 8 different starters going.
Do they all have names?
Not yet, but I think I'm getting enough of them that I need to start my own Brady Bunch sourdough clan.
Our first question is from Alicia, and she says, can I use the Sourdough Sidekick to create a new starter?
Great question, and it's something that Rick and I are both working on, and I think I can confidently say yes, you will be able to start a starter from scratch with the Sourdough Sidekick, and I think it'll be really great for people to be able to start it from scratch with the help of the Sidekick.
Next question comes from Scott. Do you recommend feeding with just white flour? Not really. No, you can use whatever type of flour you normally feed with. You can experiment. You can absolutely experiment. This is designed to enable experimentation, especially in custom mode. All right, David asks, how will you keep the starter in the ideal temperature range? So he's got, during the summer, he never lets the house get above 75 degrees, and in the winter, he usually keeps it around 73 degrees. The Sidekick does not control temperature, but what it does is it monitors temperature and it adjusts feeding schedule to compensate for the growth. So in a warmer home, your starter is gonna wanna grow faster, it's gonna be more active. In a cooler home, it's gonna wanna kind of do that more slowly. And the Sidekick will detect that and it will compensate for it. So it will feed for a more slowly fermenting starter in a cool home, and it will feed faster for a more quickly fermenting starter in a warm home. Okay, the next question is from Jane, and she asks, can you make a gluten-free sourdough starter? If so, is the process similar to regular sourdough with all-purpose wheat flour?
Great question, and I think I can almost confidently say yes, that we're going to be able to make gluten-free starter with the Sourdough Sidekick. So Jonathan Brazil, who is our gluten-free expert and has been working really hard on gluten-free sourdough, is continuing to work on this. So I feel like once the Sourdough Sidekick launches, we will be able to say, yes, you can make a gluten-free starter and perpetuate it, kind of build it in the Sourdough Sidekick. So we're still working on it, but I'm pretty confident that it will happen. It will be slightly different than the process that you use for wheat flour, just because gluten-free flours work a little bit differently, but in the end, you should be able to feed and build your gluten-free starter to use in gluten-free sourdough baking.
Great news, because that is a very common question. More than just Jane asked that question.
Yes, I saw that there were a number of people asked about gluten-free sourdough, and it's really exciting. I feel like sourdough has come so far in the last even 5 years, especially Jonathan was the one who came up with our gluten-free bread flour, and it has been game-changing for gluten-free bakers. So I'm really excited to see what the combination of gluten-free bread flour and the Sidekick can do for our gluten-free bakers.
Next question is from Terry. How will the Sidekick handle a loss of power, both momentary and extended? Great question. We are designing the Sidekick so that it will remember where it was in the feeding cycle, and it will pick back up when power is resumed. It will also survive a short-term, the power blips you get from time to time that make your clock start blinking. We are intending to design it to survive that. On the longer term power losses, it's a little harder because we don't know how long power has been lost, but it will pick back up and continue where it was when it lost power. Heather asks, what was the most unexpectedly awesome thing to come out of the Sourdough Sidekick process? There were a lot, and they are still emerging, but I would say the coolest thing to come out of it was that the micro-feeding actually worked better than we even thought it might. So that means that we're able to allow the starter to grow for up to a week without having to discard and interact with it. We thought that would be the case, and when we proved it with testing and confirmed it at King Arthur Baking, we were really excited to bring that to you.
Teresa is asking if the Sourdough Sidekick would be good for beginner bakers.
Great question, and I would say absolutely. I think the Sidekick is great for beginner sourdough bakers because sourdough baking is really intimidating. When do you feed it? How much do you feed it? How do I start with 15 grams of starter and end up with 200 grams of starter in a couple days? And that's the great thing about the Sidekick is that it takes care of all of that for you. So you're kind of learning along with the Sidekick, helping you along the way. And I think that's the great thing about it. And if you are a current sourdough baker and are just looking to make sourdough baking easier and fit into your life better, and you have kind of a program that you're already working with, as far as your feeding schedule, you can customize how you want the Sidekick to feed your starter. So I really feel like there's kind of throughout your sourdough baking journey, the Sourdough Sidekick will be there with you along the way.
Okay, this is from Jim, and Jim says that his local grocery store carries fresh sourdough English muffins, and he wants to make his own. Any good recipes that you can recommend for that?
All right, Jim, on our website, kingarthurbaking.com, we have a number of different recipes that you can check out. We also have some great blog posts on how to use sourdough in your baking. So it's not just kind of adding sourdough and hoping for the best. You're going to use some ratios of how much flour and water is in your starter to how much flour and water is in your recipe. So take a look at our website for those blog posts, and you can always call our baker's hotline, and they can answer those questions for you and kind of help you make the best English muffins that you can.
Joshua asks, how old is the oldest sourdough starter King Arthur has?
So I had to do some digging and ask some of our bakers in our bakery, and I can tell you that we have two different starters that we keep. One is a rye starter, and one is an all-purpose flour-based starter. And the rye starter, we actually have a birthday that we keep on our calendar, and I have heard that the bakers actually celebrate with eating cake on the sourdough's birthday. And I'm going to look at my paper here, do a little cheat sheet to make sure I have the date right. So our rye sourdough culture was born on August 28th, 1980. And that is the person who was the first director of our bakery, Jeffrey Hamelman, had a bakery before he started the bakery here at King Arthur. And I have a feeling that that probably came from him. And I know he has done some work in Germany. So I don't know the true backstory before it got to us, but I have a feeling that there's probably some history there that we'll have to touch on in another Q&A once I can get into contact with Jeffrey. So our rye starter is 45 years old, and our all-purpose flour starter is 25 years old.
So you've got a Gen X and a millennial.
We do, yes. And I think I love the idea of sourdough birthdays. So let's see some social media posts of celebrating your sourdough's birthday.
Great questions, everybody. If we didn't answer your question, drop it in the comments below and we'll try to answer it there. So let us know what other questions you have about the prototype, or if you want to see us bake some things, let us know and we'll get on that, and we'll see you next time.